Hello my friends, it's Dan. Welcome back. Welcome to another plastic miniature review, this time for the Samurai Command, produced by Fireforge Games for their newer Samurai Wars line. And this review is now the second that is sponsored by our channel members. I have some info down in the description if you're curious. Membership will be 99 cents a month till the universe implodes in on itself, because the goal is not any kind of like Patreon style member exclusive or early access content. It is sort of a crowdsourcing. We have an extra review every month that is facilitated by our memberships. I'm trying to scale that up to where we can get, multiple per month potentially. But as a member, you get a fancy little loyalty badge. You're going to be able to submit requests for review content that you would like. You'll get early visibility, I should say, into some upcoming content. Basically all the reviews you've seen this past week, our channel members have known about for a couple of weeks now. And critically, you'll have access to our monthly members polls for what review you would like to see done the following month. Again, info's down in the description if you're curious, and as ever, I'm immensely grateful to our channel members for their support. So this box, as I mentioned, was the one selected by our channel members for review next. This one was a switch up. The first members poll that we did was for the Samurai box itself, just the Samurai Warriors. I switched the second poll up to include this one because I thought this would be a better way for us to gain some insight into the breadth of the Samurai Wars line, because this set is smaller in scale. It's 14 models, but it seems to draw from their Ashigaru, their Samurai on foot, and their mounted Samurai. So with just this one box, we'll be able to get a glimpse anyway into some of the other boxes within the range, or at least some of the designs for the other boxes within the range, because I eventually intend to review the entirety of the range, but I don't know when I'm going to be able to get around to it. So I thought this would be a good kind of compromise solution in the meantime to give you some idea of what the range looks like. Let's talk about the box here for a second, because at least at the surface level, this is exactly what I want. You've got nice atmospheric illustration on the front, clearly delineating what the box is called versus what the name of the company is versus the name of the range, so there's no confusion. On the back, you've got some beautifully painted figures that I think accurately depict what's going to come inside of the box. So this is everything I normally want, but there is something kind of uncanny about the box art that I haven't really seen on other Fireforge boxes, and I don't want to go so far as to say I think it's AI. I think it's probably more likely that it's digitally enhanced in some way. Like, certainly I don't think this foreground is from the original painting, even if it is if it's digital art. I think this was kind of superimposed, as with the smoke effect in the background. But also, like, this arrow here, see how there, if I zoom in, there's this really small arrow in front of what looks like a larger arrow further away. So that kind of perspective issue, I'm not sure artist would have painted. So as I said, I think it's fine, again, in terms of conveying what's going to come inside of the box. You're going to get 3 sprues, all of which are different from one another. And there are no bases, just so we're clear. Again, that's the entirety of the contents of the box, which is why it is so small comparatively. Not a big deal not having bases. Really, any box that is sort of game agnostic. We see that with War Games Atlantic for their non-Barons War stuff. Victrix. There's lots of companies that don't put bases in their boxes anymore, because it's kind of up to you to decide how you want to base them. So that's not an issue for me at all. If you're new here, welcome. What we're going to do is go through each of these sprues in detail. I'll try to give you some info on the bits composition, but we'll see in a second why that's a little bit tricky. But we are going to assemble all of these figures, because there's only 14 of them. Then we're going to do some scale comparisons with some other manufacturers, and then I'll give you my final thoughts on the set. So in terms of the actual sprue breakdown, you're going to get one each of the Ashigaru command, the Samurai command, and the horse frame. So other than this horse frame, the other 2 are new, unique sprues. I initially thought that they were kind of making a compilation box using the command frames from their other boxes, but in doing research for this review, I found that there are no command frames in the other boxes. Like, if you pick up a box of the Samurai Warriors or the Ashigaru Missile Troops, whatever you want, they don't have these command frames in them. So I think the intent of this box is that it's supposed to kind of supplement the rest of the range, And that's maybe not my favorite thing to do. Like, I think these frames, you should probably have one each of these frames in your warrior boxes too, rather than having to buy a separate command box. I thought this was going to be more of a like character builder kind of box, which it certainly still can be, but you also kind of need it for your command models for your regular infantry units. So the only exception to that, again, those two frames I believe are totally unique to this box. This is one of the horse frames that come in the mounted samurai box. So anyway, that is just to show you kind of where we're headed here. So let's look at each of these frames in detail here. I mentioned I'm going to kind of try to give you a breakdown on bits like I normally do. It's just going to be a little bit interesting in this case. Here's a shot of the front and back of the horse frame. It's going to be interesting in this case because my suspicion from looking at all the sprue layouts is that you're going to have to use pretty much all of the bits that come inside of this box. And remember, there are 14 models advertised on the front of the box here, and if you pay careful attention to the count, I think what we're going to find is that there are 15 models within this set. So let's look at the horse detail here. This is the standard, I guess, 4-part horse assembly that most of us are probably used to, where you've got the tail and the head detached. The detail is very nice, especially on the unique looking barding here. I think they look great. I'm curious to see how these scale up. I will do some scale reviews toward the end of the video. And you can see their unique poses too. There's no duplicate horses on here as far as I can see, unless they've done like an inversion trick. But it doesn't look like that's the case. I also don't see a numbering system on the horses here, and there's no instructions that come in the set, which seems fine. I've put together plenty of Fireforge sets before and I've never needed any. But the implication when you don't have, say, like H1 left and H1 right, is that these can be mixed and matched freely, which we'll see. I'll test that out in the dry fitting phase. Because if true, we see that from some companies like Perry Miniatures, you're able to do that, which is cool. It's a very nice feature. There are 3 rider pairs of legs on this frame, and you can see those kind of scattered around. Really cool looking design. I think the rendering on the armor is especially well done, particularly when you compare it to the only other multi-part plastic samurai on the market, which are the old Wargames factory sculpts, which are now owned by Warlord Games. So I think those look really good. There are 3 heads on this frame, and we'll pay attention to head count. We'll be looking at the Samurai Command frame next. But you will have to use all of these heads, I think, or almost all of these heads. There are 3 Sashimonos, these back banners here, and then 3 of these look like 2-part. I can't remember what these are called. I think it's, but this is like a back piece of defensive gear, I believe. It looks like a big balloon on their back. So there you go. So this actually gives us some insight into the Samurai Cavalry frame, but also by extension their Samurai Warrior frame, the Ashigaru frame, that sort of follows modern Fireforge sprue philosophy, if you'll allow that term, which is to have the bodies on one frame and the weapons on a separate frame, which in particular for the foot, like the infantry, allows you to have 2 boxes essentially with the same body frame. You just put a different set of weapons in and you've got an entirely different kit. So that's why they were able to basically provide just the horses there, which with this supplemental samurai frame allows you to make some samurai command models out of just the regular horse frame. So let's take a look at the shot. Let's take a look at the front and back of this frame as well. Because remember, this one, it works in conjunction with the horses. Let's start with the bodies here. So there are, you can see 2 almost complete models here that are in kneeling poses. There's this guy here that's in a seated pose. Set of legs. Another completed guy here. And then count, there are 5 torsos here. And remember, you're going to need 3 of these torsos to go on the horses. So 3 of them already have torsos. So what that means is you're going to have 2 leftover torsos here, mathematically, which can go on these 2 guys. So we're already up to 8 models then, So pay attention to that count as we go on here. So again, 5 of these torsos, 3 of which are going to go on the horses, 2 of which are going to be used here for 2 standing guys, 1 sitting guy, and these 2 kneeling guys. The 2 kneeling poses and the sitting guy are really cool. I think they'd be better for like a vignette. I can't imagine there's like a real wargaming application for that, because certainly it is kind of the imagery evokes, sort of a samurai headquarters. But I'm not sure that's something you would necessarily want to represent on a battlefield, but it's cool to include them. I think that's pretty neat. So from there, you've got some head options. Remember, there are 3 head options on the cavalry set, and there are 5 more options here, all of which are going to be needed for this set. From there, for arms, you've got these 3 katana arms. Let me flip it here for you so you can see. Once again, I think the rendering on the armor is particularly well done. So 3 katana arms. There's 1 Yari arm up here. Let me flip it. As you can see, I think again it looks great. There are then 3 of these fans, or like command stick here. Not sure what you would call it. For a total of 7 right arms, that is. And remember, 2 of them aren't going to need any arms because they've already got them sculpted on there. So what that means is you've got 7 right arms for use on 6 bodies. So you're going to have 1 left over, mathematically, I believe. But we'll see. And then you've got 6 left arms. We can get some cool ones here, like resting on a sword. And some just regular left arms. So lots to play with here. And then you've got some katana bundles, and then a couple that are detached here to go on the kneeling guys. So I mentioned what I'm going to do is assemble all the models, and then I'm going to show you what's left over on the sprues. I think that's going to be the easiest way for me to demonstrate what I'm talking about in terms of bit consumption here. So let's do a shot of the front and back of this Ashigaru command, because this one, unlike the other 2, which really have to be used in conjunction with one another, can be used in isolation. So let's take a look at these bodies. And so this is where things get interesting. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 legs. And this mirrors, if you take a look at pictures of the sprue of the Ashigaru, for example, they do this where they'll include an extra set of legs that's kneeling, because it means that you can then use it in conjunction with the missile troops if you want, or just ignore the kneeling legs if you don't want them. What's curious here, though, is you've got, again, 7 sets of legs, but you also have 7 torsos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I just want to make sure that I'm not counting this wrong. So remember, we have 8 miniatures with the samurai, 3 mounted, 5 on the command frame, and then we have 7 miniatures here. So again, the box says that there are 14 miniatures in this box, and it's not depicting the kneeling legs anywhere. So I'm guessing that's the one that's kind of the extra, but it's not just a set of legs like we see on the Ashigaru frame itself. There's also a torso to go with it. So from there, in terms of heads, you can see that 3 of them are a 2-part attachment process up here. Right, up here you can see so I see what's happened here. So it's the heads that are going to be what restrict you. So there are 7 complete bodies, which is crazy, because if they had included just 1 more head, you could have made 15 miniatures out of this. But what has happened here is you've got 6 heads here that have this 2-part attachment system to go with these helmets, right? And then there are these 2 here. So you can only make 6 of these figures because you're going to have one that won't have a head, even though you have enough torsos. So that's disappointing. Again, it seems so silly that if they had just included 1 more head, you could have made a 15th model here. Of course, I'm going to try to source my own head and come up with my own solution to that, because there are certainly enough arms too. Because if we count, there are 8 right arms. I'm just going to rotate around the sprue here. So 8 right arms carrying various implements, some of which are just open hands, some of which are holding like drumsticks, some banner poles, a little conch shell here. So there's 8 right arms and there's 9 left arms. And lots of little accessory bits here, like a little umbrella, a couple of banner options there, some large quivers, So I think the sculpting looks really good. Again, they're clean sculpts. They look neat. So let me cut here. I'm going to assemble these miniatures. I think everything looks really good on the frame. And we'll see what's left over on these sprues once I'm done. Alright, so I built everything up. Let me start by showing you what's left on the sprues, because it's not a lot. So here's the Samurai Command sprue. You can see there's just a couple of arms, some scabbards. Here's the Cavalry sprue. You can see it's a Sashimono, two of the back protection things. There's one leftover Sashimono as well that I did not use, but that's it. And then here's the Ashigaru Command. And there's also this one extra banner piece that I cut off but didn't use. So that's it. I mean, so I did make all 15 models. I'll talk about that in a second. Because remember, the Ashigaru have enough bits to make 7 figures, so long as you can source an extra head. Let's look at these cavalry first. So remember, these are the horse and leg bits from the regular Samurai Cavalry set. And I suppose the Sashimono and head are from that as well. But the torsos and arms are unique to this command sprue, or command set. And I think they look really good. I guess maybe my only critique is that the horse detail is not the strongest that I've seen, in the face in particular. Like here on the right, this is a Firelock Games horse, which is among the best that I've seen, which caught me off guard, to be honest with you. So especially the horse face detail. But again, I quibble over things like that, because when you have this painted up at 28mm, no one's really going to be scrutinizing the horse face detail. It's really the bigger question is are the proportions correct? And they look good to me. Here's another one here. So I think these mounted guys look pretty good, especially considering again that I would say 75% of the figure is just a regular Samurai Cavalry model. But I found I could make some pretty cool poses even just from tilting the heads in different ways. I was doing a bunch of dry fitting of torsos and whatnot, and everything seemed to mix and match quite nicely, which is good. Let's talk about the Samurai Command now. So let's do this little vignette with this daimyo guy. There's the seating samurai. This is the only one that I felt had some proportion issues. You can see that overlap there with the seating body. There's got to be a torso that lines up with it more perfectly, but I couldn't figure it out. So it might have been one of the cavalry models who were supposed to have his torso, but he looks cool anyway. These two, I guess my only critique here is that they are identical. I thought there was some subtle difference to them, so the only difference is going to be the head, which is not a huge deal, but just something of note. Then you've got these two that had to be assembled. So one of them had a separate torso, and then one of them is fully intact, like this guy here. And there's a good number of arm options to play with, to be honest with you. Again, there's nothing really left on this sprue. I think there's 1 or 2 arms. But you've got enough for everybody, which is good. I didn't find any arms that couldn't line up with anyone, which could be a concern. Again, there's no instructions in this set, so that's something to be aware of. Let's talk about the Ashigaru now. So remember, there were 7 or enough bits for 7 complete models, except for the heads, right? So I had to source 1 extra head, which we'll get to at the end. And these are cool too. I do feel there is a proportion issue with these guys that didn't exist on the other figures, because I think the samurai models are really good, especially these guys on foot here. I think look really good. The Ashigaru I felt look a little more squat, but that might just be my perception. The only other issue I had with them is my normal trick with the round ball attachment points for heads is to cut off a sliver on the bottom of them. I find that it gets them to line up more nicely. It didn't really work here. This is the first time I've ever encountered it where the neck is too wide then to set down into the neck attachment point. And because otherwise the problem is some of them, I feel like this one here, I don't think I did that with. The head is then, I think, too high up, the neck is too long. But it's not a huge deal. It's just something that I ran into. Here's the kneeling guy. This kneeling guy makes it clear to me that this is meant to be used in conjunction with the Ashigaru set, because like as we saw, like that kneeling body isn't even used on the cover art, and I think it's meant to be like a loading guy or something like that, used with maybe the handgunner set. But there's some cool little pieces here again for like a diorama, if you might want. Or again, if you play a war game where there might be like a samurai HQ that has some kind of in-game impact, it'd be cool to have these figures there. Or again, if you're just looking to add some command figures to, say, your Ashigaru units. And then here's my 15th model. So remember, there were 7 figures on the Ashigaru, then not enough heads, so I ended up making a Blackthorn model from Shogun. So again, that's a head from, I think, the Oathmark Light Infantry, and then the handgun bits are from the Firelock game Sailors that we just looked at. Alright, let's take everybody for a spin here. So you can see there are a number of manufacturers there, and the names of those manufacturers or ranges are going to be on the bases of the primed white figures. And then pay attention to the fact that some have splash or puddle bases, and that some don't. These are on the bigger side, and that's something we've seen from more recent Fireforge offerings compared to their earlier historical stuff. But these actually aren't as big as I thought they would be, and not as like overbearingly large. But they're definitely going to be bigger than if you have like the Wargames Factory Plastic Samurai, which are now Warlord Games Plastic Samurai. So we got to scale up the cavalry as well, of course. So let's start in the center there. That's Fireforge. I'll just call them out as they spin. Victrix, Perry Miniatures, Fireforge, Oathmark, Firelock, Fireforge, Wargames Atlantic, and Fireforge, the earlier medieval knight. So what's the final verdict? I think this is a nice set. I think that this is probably a necessary set if I'm correct, and the other boxes in the range don't contain any command figures. But in terms of like what is in here, I think these are really beautifully detailed figures. Certainly better than the only other offering in multi-part plastic for this period and subject matter, which is the old Wargames Factory sculpts that are now produced by Warlord Games. These are going to be a lot better than those. We saw too that they were bigger, so that's one more consideration. If you're doing a standalone project with these, I think that these look really, really good. Maybe my only other concern, we never talked about price. I guess I always say I don't talk about price on this channel, but I do. I just don't talk about value, because I think value is up for you to decide. But this, for me to purchase, was like $33 US for 14 figures. And so I don't have a problem with that. I guess the only concern I have is with the set composition, because what that suggests to me is that they built this with the intention of you using these for, say, like a skirmish war game where you're only going to need one of these command sets. However, if you play like any kind of mass battles game and you need, say, like 6 of these banner guys to spread out among units, you're only going to get 2 of these in the box. And aside from the Ashigaru, which contain like the actual command bits, and some of these, of course, are to make like commander models, right? This box isn't really conducive to army building, or you're going to need to pick up, say, like 3 of these in order to get all the Ashigaru banner guys that you need, and you're going to have a whole lot of extra stuff that, like, these could be probably pressed into your regular samurai cavalry, which is fine, but like these are cool, but they're more of a novelty, right? You're certainly not going to need 3 copies of this for a samurai army. So I think I would have preferred maybe a slightly different price point and to have like 3 copies of that Ashigaru command frame, or to just change the price point on their regular warrior boxes and include some of this command within the warrior box as well. But what is here in terms of like what's actually included in the box, I think all looks really, really good. So if this is a subject matter that interests you, if this is a time period that interests you, definitely give them a look. I'll have a link down in the description to the Fireforge site. Thank you once again to our members for their ongoing support here. Again, I have info down in the description as well, if you would like to consider joining for next month's poll. I've got lots and lots of review content to come. I have one more video from Firelock Games that I'm kind of halfway done with, so that'll be coming out here shortly, and then lots of North Star reviews to follow that. So appreciate you all for dropping by for this one in the meantime, and until next time, happy gaming.